Good evening and welcome to Shining the Light for Clarke Epstein. I'm Liz Green and I'll be your host for the evening. And right away, I would love to welcome Sherry Neal, our current president of NSA Wisconsin, to greet you all.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
So Sherry, as you know, we refer to NSA as a family, and certainly Chris was the matriarch of our family. I want to tell everybody a little bit about why we felt it was so important to celebrate Chris and some of the ways that this chapter is really celebrating her.
Well, you're going to find out tonight with everybody that's sharing why it's so important to celebrate Clarke Epstein and all that she has been to our chapter and every single person who has ever crossed paths with Chris. Some of the things that our chapter really wanted to do to honor Chris, first and foremost, was we put a memorial on our homepage, and we're creating a tribute page on our website for infinitum. We created an award, the Clarke Epstein Award, a few years back when we had an incredible event to celebrate her, which we're also very that we were to showcase her while she was here. So those couple of things, and as well, in her obituary, she had requested donations for the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. So our organization sent a check for $150, as well as the Asper's Health Foundation, their hospice, and we did $150 towards there. And then they also recommended donating a tree. So we actually donated a grove of 3 trees because Chris didn't do anything alone. She did everything together as a group, and we wanted to recognize that even in the planting of the trees.
And I so appreciate that as a member of our chapter and of NSA in general. All of those are so touching. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I think is special about Chris, and one of the reasons we call this Shining the Light for Clarke Epstein, was Chris's light. Whenever she was at a chapter meeting, there just seemed to be more light in the room. And her light didn't diminish other people. It really just allowed us to shine more brightly. So we're going to be celebrating Chris in 5 different categories, I guess is the way that you would describe it. You're going to hear some people talk about leadership and service and mentorship and legacy. But right now, I'd like you and I to talk about Chris's love of learning. Because if you spent any time at all with Clarke Epstein, you knew that she loved learning.
Absolutely.
If she didn't tell you the book that you should be reading right now, it's because you didn't have enough long enough conversation. But it wasn't just learning for herself, and it wasn't just being a great teacher, which she was. Mm-hmm. She was an avid learner. She loved to learn new things. I think the most flattered I have ever been was when she saw something I had done. I'd put together an ebook way early on, and she called me up on the phone and asked me how I did that and would I tell her how I did it. And I'm like, you want something from me? But that she just had a hunger for knowledge and was always learning new things. I know that she contributed to the board and to our chapter in many ways. Can you talk a little bit about some of the things she's done, even most recently?
Sure. Just to say out loud, her hunger for learning was even learning about people. When I reached out to her when I first got involved with the chapter and asked her if we could have a Zoom coffee date, we had the next day. We were on, and we were both in our pajamas having a cup of coffee and just hanging out. She was so giving and so loving and so kind. She when Lisa Hain was the president of the organization, she brought her in to do to facilitate our board retreat, which was incredible. I had another situation with the book that I wrote. I did a weekly interview with somebody, and I reached out to her, and she was so thrilled. I want the book. Let me do this. And we had the most incredible conversation in that way. You know, I've had conversations with a couple of members who didn't get a chance to know her very well. And they're so grateful that we're doing these kinds of events and really showcasing it so that they can feel like they get to know her through our stories. And yeah, she just, like you said, you know, the number of times it's like, oh, you need to read that book, or you should check out this book, or yeah, and supporting us, every one of us, with the books that we did. She really encouraged, just keep on learning and growing with everything you do.
Absolutely. And we would love to hear your stories in the Zoom chat if you're joining us on Zoom, or in the Facebook live chat if you're joining us there. Sherry is going to be your host of the chat in the Facebook live group, and Patty Hendrickson is your host in the Zoom chat. So please, please, please tell us your stories, and we'll enjoy those, and we're recording them along with the video, so those will be stored up for people to see as well. So Sherry, thank you so much for helping me kick this off, and I'm gonna thank you so much, and do a great job, I know you will, in the chat. And we're gonna move on to talking about how Chris's light shone in leadership. And I'm going to welcome Lenora Billings Harris to the program tonight. And oh, Lenora serves NSA in so very, very many ways, but was, I like to think of you and Chris as the dynamic duo.
I love you thinking of us that way, and I certainly did as it relates to Chris. She impacted my life in so many ways.
Well, I'm going to hand it over to you to talk about Chris's leadership, and I can't wait to hear what you have to say.
Sure. Well, you know, there's so many things that I thought about in trying to put something together, because I could think of Chris in not just an NSA perspective, but in many others as well. But I thought, given that there are other people that will be talking about her as well, that I mainly focus on her leadership as I experienced it within NSA. However, I think that she really started to hone her leadership abilities at the dinner table when she was a child with her parents, because I know, based on what she shared with me, that they'd have these really stimulating conversations and debates, and she knew how to stand her ground. So one of the things that I thought about was a quote from Warren Bennis, that leadership is the capacity of translating vision into reality. And I really saw Chris that way. She served on the NSA board, as you mentioned, and that's where I really got to know her. I mean, I knew her from a distance, but then when I joined the NSA board and I got to know Chris as a person as well as a board member, we just clicked right away. You know how it is when you meet somebody and you just know that they're going to be a friend, and more than just in this case, a volunteer professional kind of friend. And that's how it was for me with Chris. She had a vision about NSA. She had a vision of what it could be, not just the continuation of what it already was. And that started well before she became NSA president. She often kept us on track in board meetings when we would be talking about something and having to make what we thought was a very important decision, but there was a person involved. And she'd make these comments, these just short phrases that would get us on track. And one that she said often that stays with me, and I think about it when in my various leadership roles, and that is put the process before the person. Put the process before the person. Because she was always concerned that we might make a decision because we liked a person, but we didn't really have a process in place first. To illustrate the power of learning, many of you might remember when she made her presidential acceptance speech, she brought her infant grandson, Quinn, on board, on the stage. Through holding this baby, she illustrated to us how learning happens and how important it is throughout our whole life. She championed putting NSA on the map from a perspective of having learning resources online. Now, today you might think that's pretty ordinary, but back in 2000, 2001, the internet and websites were just kind of getting started. So she really championed making it possible for our members to reach out to find those resources, those tapes of all of the breakout sessions from our various meetings. She pushed the envelope during her presidency by having the Turtle Creek Chorale sing at her convention, with Gary Rifkin prominently featured. She also pushed the envelope a bit by not having prayers before each meal. She wanted to be more inclusive, and so instead, she personally shared insightful moments and sort of meditation type of moments rather than specific prayers. Then after her presidency, so many people got to know her because she and Terry Paulson led the VIP first-timer session for so many years. In fact, you'll remember, those of you who are members, seeing those yellow ROI cards in people's name badges, because that was her way of helping people remember that you want to get a return on your investment, so set your goals first. And she even conducted sessions to help anyone, not just first-timers, do that. When I think of Chris, I realize how many ways my life has been impacted because she was in it. Chris, I'll always keep your light shining. Rest in peace, my friend.
Oh, thank you, Honora. That, it was wonderful to just hear the length and the depth of her service and leadership. So thank you for sharing that with us. I really, really appreciate it. And I know we all do. Thank you. Now we're going to move on from leadership into talking about service. And it is my pleasure to introduce the current chairman of the board of NSA, Barry Bamfler, to share with us about Chris and her national service.
Thanks, Liz, very much. I first met Chris in 1999, and like everyone else that's participating tonight, she made an indelible and immediate impact on me. From 1999 through her presidency until now, I could fill the next hour talking about her official service. But there's one thing that struck me and has been a model for me from Chris for these 2 decades. The Wisconsin chapter was not the most prominent thing on her mind. And when she went on the board at NSA, that was not the most prominent thing. And even being sworn in as president wasn't the thing that was the most important to her. I think we all would agree the most important thing to Chris constantly was the person, the individual. You didn't sit in a workshop with her that you didn't sense she not only was talking to you, but she cared about you. I went back through some of my email file. I have a Chris Clarke Epstein email file, and I found an email where we were doing a workshop together several years ago, and she sent an email saying, I want to share my process with you because I want to set you up for success. That was Chris. She was always trying to do whatever she could to help someone else succeed. For me, she's a shining model of St. Paul's words that he wasn't writing his legacy with ink, not on tablets of stone, but on human hearts. Chris has written on all of our hearts and thousands of people's hearts in an indelible ink, and it will never be forgotten. And most importantly, we all have the privilege of continuing to live out her model. In late August, I had the privilege of submitting to the NSA Board of Directors a commendation for their ratification. I'm grateful that they immediately and unanimously did that, and we were able to get this to Chris. We wanted her to know officially what was being done. I'd like to read that commendation for you now. Chris Clarke Epstein, as president of the National Speakers Association, focused us all on the theme of leading the way to learning. Throughout her year of service, this theme was evident in all of our programming and national events. It did not stop, however, with just her year. She continued to model this purpose in her own work as a writer and as a speaker, and she mentored countless number of NSA members in their own journey to learn their craft. Today, NSA has emerged as the preeminent association for the professional development of speakers, and her theme is more relevant in our current environment than ever before. For this reason, the NSA Board of Directors does this day, August 25th, 2020, publicly commend past President Clarke Epstein for her example of excellence in communication, commitment in preparing others to share their story, and her unwavering devotion to our association. We are better today because of her.
We are indeed better today because of her.
Yes, we are.
So true. Barry, thank you so much. And I'm going to hold you for just a second, because what I failed to say at the beginning of this is that we've asked everybody to keep their few words at 3 minutes or less, which I think would have tickled Chris, because she was always encouraging us to edit our writing and our speaking. One of her sayings that runs in my head was, I would have written a shorter letter if I had only had the time.
I actually practiced it for that reason, because if it's possible for her to hear it, I knew that I would hear.
Yes, indeed. Well, you did it perfectly. So thank you so much, Barry.
Thank you.
And service was so much a part of Chris's life that we wanted to focus two ways, both in the National Association, but also in our chapter. So I'm going to welcome Lisa Hain, who is a past president of the Wisconsin chapter of NSA, to tell us a bit about Chris's service here at home.
Thank you. And Barry, it is possible for her to hear us, I'm hoping. So with that, there are founding fathers like Cabot, and then there are founding mothers like Chris. So when I consider the heart of our professional family, I think of Clarke Epstein. When we demonstrate genuine service to others, we honor ourselves, we honor each other, and we carry on Chris's legacy. I first met Chris at my very first NSA chapter event in 2010. Much of that event was a blur. But I do remember the way she made me feel. And I put her card in my right pocket. Like so many of you over the years, Chris became our mentor, our trusted friend, our confidant. Watching her welcome and interact with new speakers was inspiring. She truly was a great example to follow, a shining, bright yellow light. I loved her quick wit, with the side of motherly wisdom, and I could listen to her stories for hours. I can't tell you how many times I reached for my yellow notebook to jot something down to discuss with her during our Zoom meetings. I miss her light in my life very much. For me, she was a true guiding light, willing to challenge you to the next level. And amid the challenging, she always made you feel worthy. Her example of steward leadership makes us all better stewards, better listeners, better storytellers. And in the end, it's about the deposits you make into the lives of others around you. Chris has made so many significant deposits in our lives. She's an undeniable resource of knowledge, and she's a giver first. Tell me if this sounds familiar. Persuasive speaking and writing. Write, edit, repeat. Write, edit, repeat. Don't edit while writing. Speaking isn't writing. Writing is writing. And your first draft is supposed to suck. She gave us permission to write poorly, so in the end, we could write brilliantly. This business is not for the faint of heart. It's often difficult. It's a difficult undertaking that requires great effort. And Chris believed in a job well done. If you're serious about this business, she'd say, you commit, you show up, and you do your very best, or you give the money back. It's truly about the deposits you make into the lives around you. She did that so well, we created an award to remind us of how very important it is to shine a light in the lives of others. So when June 2018 came around, the National Speakers Association Wisconsin chapter established the Clarke Epstein Legacy Award. to celebrate the matriarch of our chapter, to honor her with legacy in the highest form. Our board of directors presented Chris this prestigious legacy award in honor of her exceptional example and service to many members of our NSA family, all of you. Today, she leaves us with a grand legacy, worthy of grand celebration, surrounded by those she loved and those who loved her. So next time you're in a room filled with people, think shining yellow light and seek out the one who looks a little bit misplaced and let your yellow light shine. Let's channel the service legacy of Chris Clarke Epstein wherever we can. We love you. We miss you. We'll continue your legacy. Whew, I held it together.
Congratulations. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
In the evening that we all spent together celebrating that legacy award, I know was a highlight for many of us. I believe it was a highlight for Chris as well. But if you haven't had the opportunity to see the video, I know it's going to be, I believe it's going to be shared on the NSA Wisconsin website, of Chris being surprised because this was a secret. She didn't know she was going to get it, much like the Cavett Award. We believe that it's wonderful to surprise people in amazing ways. And watching all of her friends and family, she just thought she was there for NSA's annual awards night and swearing in the board. And it just was a spectacular night. So I thank you, Lisa, for your leadership as NSA president that year and getting that established, because it is something that we're going to treasure for many, many years to come.
Thank you. And I just want to say thank you, Liz and Patty Hendrickson, for spearheading and masterminding this whole production, because of the love that you felt for Chris and for the determination for you to establish this award, and for the board of directors and everyone involved, all the loved ones that came to see her that night. She was elated, and that's exactly the result we wanted. That's what she deserved. And I thank everyone that participated in that, because it was truly a grand event for her.
It was. That's exactly the right word, a grand event.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Lisa.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to turn from service into mentorship. And Lisa talked a little bit about what it's like to receive the full beam of Chris Clarke Epstein's light. And another person who knows about that is Mimi Brown. So I'm going to welcome her in. And Mimi, you and I both have received the full beam.
We have, and we're better for it.
We are indeed. So Chris was incredibly giving. She was a regular attendee, mentor in our NSA Wisconsin Academy. Lots of new people who came to the chapter, especially through the Academy, got to know Chris because she was so giving. But to be able to receive from her on an individual basis is pretty special. So I'm going to leave it to you to say something about that.
How powerful. So it was July 2013, and I vividly remember the words of one of my NSA Michigan members, Marilyn Simonik, as I walked off the plane at BWI in DC, and I can still smell the scent of the roasted coffee that greeted me after I got off the jet bridge. And she looked at me and she said, Mimi, make sure when you arrive to Influence that if you do nothing else, you must meet Chris Clarke Epstein. And I'm thinking to myself, who is this lady that she's talking about? And she said, you'll know her. She'll have this aura around her, and she'll be wearing yellow or be accessorized in yellow. And so as I walked through the hallways of my first National Speakers Association convention, I spotted her in the hallway. She had this beautiful silver curly hair, and she was wearing a newsprint blouse. Her accessories accented in her signature yellow color. And she seemed to take court with all the folks gathered around her, feeding off her every word. She greeted me with a hug, and I said, Marilyn Simonik said I needed to meet you. I don't know why, but she said I needed to meet you. And she just smiled at me, and we took a photo. I had no clue that would be a defining moment for me. When you think about defining moments, when you're in them, they just seem like a regular day or a normal occurrence. It's been said that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And it would be some 4 years later that I had to be reintroduced to the teacher. Chris and I connected through Facebook and would see each other at conferences. But it was April of 2017 when she hosted her writing one-on-one course where I had a chance to really get the full experience of Chris. I was struggling with this writing project, and as I signed up for her class week after week, I just seemed to have this lift of inspiration and ability. And it was Oprah who said, a mentor is someone who allows you to see the hope inside yourself. And Chris allowed me to see that hope. After that wonderful experience of being in her writing class, I asked her to mentor me one-on-one. And as Jim Rohn said, he said, my mentor said, let's do it, not do it by yourself. And Chris said, let's make this happen, Mimi. And so for weeks and months on end, we would meet every week through a 2-hour Zoom call and sip on coffee. And she would mentor me not only in this book, but on life. I was so blessed to know Chris in a way that I think many of you have. My life is better because she was a part of it. And she didn't just mentor me in writing, she mentored me in life. She was just there for me in times when she knew I needed her in a way that others didn't. And so as I wrap up, it reminds me of my last interaction with Chris in person. It was September 24th of 2019. And she drove all the way from Wausau to Sheboygan, Wisconsin, where I was speaking. She helped me at my speaking engagement, helped me sell books, helped me negotiate a gig, all in the way that a mentor should. And as she got in her car and headed back to Wausau, a tear streamed down my face because I felt so full from her light. I'm so honored to be a mentee of Chris. And as one of her very favorite ways to end her email, she would, in her writing in third person, and I'll end it in the same way. Mimi, who misses Chris, her quick wit, her warm smile, and her loving nags. Thank you.
Loving nags. Yes, that's true. And that may be the thing I miss the most. Whew, girl. That's great. Thank you so much, Mimi. That was perfect.
Thanks.
All right, so we've talked about leadership, we've talked about service, we've talked about mentorship. Let's talk a little bit about legacy. And it's my pleasure to welcome Gary Rifkin, who is, I believe, a forever honorary member of NSA Wisconsin, because you definitely feel part of our family. And I don't think there's a better person to talk about Chris's legacy. So thank you for being here, and it's all yours.
I am one voice singing in the dark. Just one lonely voice, but my song can be a spark. Come and join me. We can light a fire so bright the world will be dancing in our light. And we will not be silent. We will not be silent anymore. Legacy. Chris, you are our legacy. You taught us so much with your courage, your bravery, your wanting to learn in every moment that you could, the ability to make us think and feel, and then probably more than anything, do because of your words and your actions. So I'm remembering the first time I saw you speak, it was at a winter NSA conference, and the bag that is behind me on the wall was one of the bags that was yet to come, because you were using everyone else's bags, the themes from the previous presidents, to talk about their legacy and what you had learned from each of them. And now we get to talk about yours and the legacy that you've brought to us, the legacy of wanting us to be better always. You know, one of the things that I know to be true of you, and I know that Mimi knows this, and everyone else that has ever been mentored by you or loved by you knows, is that you will tactfully but very honestly tell us the truth. And I needed your truth a lot throughout my career. And so the legacy that you bring to me, I now have to pass on to others. I chose that music that I started with for two reasons. One, we both loved music. It was part of our legacy together. But two, it's from Sing for the Cure, the choral symphony about breast cancer that I know you and I both love, that I got to perform many years ago with Dr. Maya Angelou as the narrator. And I sing that also because your voice, your gift for getting us to think and feel and do will live on in every single one of us. I love that. But I think what I love the most, Chris, was your authenticity. I shouldn't say was, is your authenticity. You chose always to be real. You chose to introduce us to people we needed to meet, like Marilyn Simonik, like Leslie Charles, like the Jekyls, and so many other people that I got to know because of you. But what I really loved is that you showed us what family was all about, whether it was introducing us to Quinn, as was mentioned earlier, or for me, getting to know your family, love your family, be part of your family, and even be willing to put up with Frank, whom I love dearly, along with your children and your grandchildren and everyone in your life, because that is who you are and that is who we now are. But it was your authenticity that I love the most, because you always told me to be who I am. You always encouraged me to be who I am. And you always loved me for who I am. And that's what we need to do. Your legacy now becomes our legacy. We now need to encourage, tell people to be who they are, encourage people to be who they are, and love people as they are. And so, I am one voice, I will not be silent, I will keep on singing till I'm heard. I am one voice, I will not be silent, till my song is heard around the world. You have only begun to hear the power of one. I will keep on singing, I will keep on singing. We'll keep on singing till we're heard. Oh, Chris, thank you for your legacy. And thank you for making it so clear, the words of Dr. Maya Angelou, that people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made us feel. And you will always make us feel special. That's your legacy, and that is our legacy to pass along to the rest of the world. I love you, Chris, and I always will.
Wow, that was just beautiful. Thank you, Gary.
And she brought you into my life, Liz, so I appreciate
Oh
that.
yeah, that's a gift.
Thank you.
Oh, wow. So legacy is something pretty special, and Chris was a winner of the Cavett Award. And there's Patty Hendrickson, who was my partner in crime when we decided that when Chris won the Cavett Award, we needed to have a big party. And that was another night that was just spectacular. And I think one of the things that was just fantastic about being around Chris is that she would, like Gary said, she brought us together. There were a lot of people that she would sort of pull in and pull together. And that night and the night that the chapter gave her the Legacy Award were nights where yeah, her family was there, and past presidents and Cabot Award winners, and it just was this gathering that all centered around Chris, which was fantastic. So thank you for being a part of that. Thank you for being a part of this. And I'm excited to see what you have for us to talk about Chris's legacy.
As I told Frank, Liz and I know how to throw parties for Chris. So that's where our heart was this evening. Everything was with Chris in mind. But this evening, with outrageous joy and overwhelming sadness, I'm here to celebrate my friend and mentor since 1992. Yikes. CSP Cabot Award winner, Clarke Epstein. A woman whose legacy was, you don't just show up, you show up with intention. And she always did. This evening's event is hosted by NSA Wisconsin, a small but mighty chapter where we show up intentionally to support each other from the heart of the heart. She taught us that. She taught us that the chapter was important. No matter where she was in her career, earning millions of miles on one airline or speaking down the road in Wausau, she would, if she could, show up to chapter meetings. And for those of you who don't know where our chapter is located, Chris lived in Wausau, Wisconsin. Most of her career, our chapter meetings were 2 hours and 45 minutes away. And remember, we live in Wisconsin where we have winter, but she showed up because it mattered. That's what our chapter's about. When Chris became the NSA national president, of course, she visited every chapter there was, and she'd often be asked to swear in their officers if it was a meeting where a new board was taking over. And she was shocked to find that NSA did not have a standard officer induction ceremony. So, of course, Chris, our beloved friend and writer, she wrote one. And this evening, I think it's most appropriate as we celebrate Chris that we hear her words and what she wished for NSA. Now, I was searching for this because Chris, a few months ago, was supposed to be installing our current officers at the Wisconsin chapter, but she became ill and I didn't want to bother the family. So we were searching for this, and there wasn't one at NSA, a copy of it. Well, it couldn't be found. After Chris passed, I reached out to Miriam, and she found this for me and sent it to me. And when we're finished this evening, I'm going to pass it on to the NSA headquarters. So this ceremony and these words can inspire all of us forever. So this evening, I'm going to share these words in honor of Chris. Because you'll hear her in these messages. And I will say NSA Wisconsin, but would you please, whatever chapter is near and dear to you that you belong to, just put that chapter name in for you, all right? And when I asked you to give a response, the ceremony only says, please answer, I will. But tonight, just for us, I'm going to say, will you please respond, I will, Chris. In Chris's words, it is my honor as a past president of the National Speakers Association to officially install you as the leaders of NSA Wisconsin. I have a few questions to ask you. Do you accept the responsibilities and obligations as well as the excitement and the joy of being a leader in NSA? If so, please answer, I will, Chris. Do you promise to uphold the NSA Code of Ethics faithfully and focus on the needs of our members carefully? If so, please respond, I will, Chris. Do you promise to make decisions thoughtfully, spend our organization's resources wisely, listen to each other intently, and laugh together regularly? If so, please answer, I will, Chris. Will all the NSA Wisconsin chapter and the other NSA members please stand? Do you promise to support the leaders of NSA Wisconsin as well as the leaders of NSA as they work on your behalf? If so, please answer, we will. Chris. As a past president of the National Speakers Association, I challenge and charge all of you with the responsibility of advancing the art and science of professional speaking each and every time you walk on to the platform. And her final words: my heartiest thanks and congratulations to you all. That's what Chris wants for us. And Chris isn't with us anymore in the flesh here with us. We can't smile at her. But those words ring true in our hearts. And you and I, we can keep her alive if we treat one another and our fabulous NSA with all the love and devotion that she did. I will, Chris.
I will too. That was fantastic. Thank you so much, Patty. And Patty knows that if you want a job done and you're like, nobody's going to agree to do this, you're going to ask my Damish. So thank you, Patty. Mike, thank you for saying yes to being our light bearer for the evening. I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you so much for saying yes to this.
Talk with everybody about Chris's light. What I'm talk about right now is Chris's light. And I want to share something that happened. We planned this so that we could be on the water and put the lanterns in the water. And we were hoping that the sunset would still be happening, but you can tell it's not. But here's what amazing happened. Gary, when you started singing, the sun was almost at the end here, and the sky literally lit up with a red sun. As you sang, it suddenly appeared out of the clouds. Chris was listening. Chris was letting us know she was here. You cannot cover up Chris's light. I don't care how cloudy it is when you up. And that's what she does. And that sun is back there behind those clouds because, like we said, that's Chris. She's always there, even if you can't see. And then not only that, but then when Patty, you started reading, the last glimmer of light came back through the clouds before the sunset ended, right as you were talking about what Chris would have been saying. And Chris always did that at our meetings. It was incredible. I will never forget what Chris taught me when we were talking one day. We were talking about our current environment in the world. And we talked about when you have differences with people. And Chris said, Mike, my mom taught me as a child that you don't have to like them, but you have to love them. I have never forgotten that moment because that's the epitome of Chris's light. No matter what's happening, she was, no matter what you needed to hear, whether that you needed, it was done with love, and it was done with, and many people might not know, but Chris was the one that, after being the president of our national association, would also be the person that would run the introduction sessions at our national conventions for newcomers, and giving them her light as the first experience at our national convention, and giving them the light of what to look for and how not to be overwhelmed so they'd stay and feel welcome. And she always lit the room up. I always loved just popping in there and seeing her do that, because that was the light she gave all of us. We wear yellow tonight because that's the light she brought into our day. I'm so grateful for Chris. Chris, I know you're watching us right now. I know you're right behind me right now. I want to thank you. Right now, I want to welcome anybody who is going to join us in lighting a candle, lighting a lantern for what we're about to do next, which is we are going to light some lights, and in this case, lanterns. We're going to put them in the water so that they can go across. And just like Chris, they'll continue to light the way after I'm done talking, and we're all done talking here. So I'm going to attempt that now. We're going to give it our best shot here to do that. So here we go. We're going to put these in the water. I'm going to try to switch this around. This is the joy of trickery here of doing camera work from a boat. So let me do a switch here on the camera so we can show the lights. And it's taking off already. See, you cannot hold Chris back, but we're going to put some more lights in there, some more candles with lights. So if you can't see, they're all lit up, but you cannot stop Chris. She goes on her own. I thought we'd have them there, but there they go.
If I had only known it was our last walk in the rain, I'd keep you out for hours in the storm. I would hold your hand like a lifeline to my heart, and underneath the thunder we'd be warm. If I had only known it was our last walk in the rain. If I had only known I'd never hear your voice again, I'd memorize each thing you ever said. And on these lonely nights I could think of them once more and keep your words alive inside my head. If I had only known I'd never hear your voice again. Come back, let me hold you one more time. Let me say goodbye. If I had only known it was my last night by your side, I'd pray a miracle would stop the dawn. And when you smiled at me, I would look into your eyes and make sure you know my love for you goes on and on. If I had only known, if I had only known the love I would have shown, if I had only known.
Thank you, everybody, for shining the light there for Chris Clarke Epstein. As we close out, we have one of Chris's dearest, oldest friends, Rick Jekyll, to come and say a few words. Come on, Rick, and share. Certainly one of the things that you saw at the end of the video was Chris toasting us, and I'm going to leave it to you to toast Chris.
Thanks, Liz. I first met Chris back in 1990 at an NSA Illinois meeting. From the start, I was absolutely captivated by the remarkable smarts, her warmth, and her amazing spirit. It was apparent that the only thing bigger than her intelligence was her heart. Chris inspired an entire generation of NSA presidents. During her own term as NSA president, she lived her theme absolutely, totally, leading the way to learning, as she did throughout her entire life. The main thing that always impressed me so much was that Chris was possessed of this great unselfishness, this willingness to share her time, her experience, and her knowledge with others. Time after time at NSA conventions and events, I watched her patiently sit with newcomers or with established speakers, helping them to preserve and to perfect their craft. I saw her make time in her schedule when there was none. She would get up very early, she would stay up very late to help others. And that's the real deal. That's about living a life of significance. Chris helped to create and to sustain the magic of community that is so fundamental to NSA. It's no wonder that she was a Cavett Award winner. In fact, I can think of no one in NSA who more closely exemplified the spirit of Cavett than did our friend Chris. Unless it was Cavett himself, and I think she gave him a real run for his money. It is an old chestnut, but it is so true. The difference between the ordinary and the extraordinary is always just that little extra. And that's what Chris always gave all of us, that extra. And so if you would, panelists, please turn on your cameras, and please, if you would all raise your glasses and join me in a toast to a lovely person who never failed to exceed expectations, to a person who always left you thinking, to a friend who never let you down, to a truly one-of-a-kind, extraordinary Chris Clarke Epstein. To you, Chris.
To Chris.
Chris.
To Chris. Except it should have been a martini.
It's wine. Frank will be proud. It's wine.
All right, so thank you, everybody. This has been an amazing, amazing tribute and evening. I enjoyed spending time with all of you, everybody who helped put this together. It's a labor of love that we really enjoy. I'm going to invite you to join us at Chat with Liz after we end here so that we can all see each other. It's a Zoom meeting. We can share our stories of Chris in a less formal environment. So I invite you to do that. One more, raising the glass to Chris. Thank you, everybody. Let's keep our light shining. To Chris.
Chris.